Don't you just love the feel of Lent, the music that we're singing, "Have mercy on me, God"? Just the way the whole sound has changed and how we're moved to feel this need to change, to feel this need to be different. You know, it's kind of interesting as we start to unravel this message, "I thirst." As we explained the other day, those words come from St. Mother Teresa, who put them on in the chapel of every convent that she founded right next to the crucifix, because Jesus said those words from the cross, and when she meditated on it, she realized that Jesus was talking a lot more than about physical thirst. And we too have to acknowledge that Jesus thirsts for us, but we also thirst for him. Now, today's readings, I think, are wonderful readings, and I really do love that reading from Genesis, although it's a much abbreviated version of what we have. But that reading from Genesis is one of those ones that kind of make me scratch my head a little bit. There's Adam and Eve. They had it. They had it all. It couldn't have been, I mean, we can't even imagine, because of our own fallen nature, just how good they had it. They had all they wanted to eat. They had shelter. They had the protection of God. They didn't have the problems of things like lust because they were naked without shame. They had it all. And to boot, they got to hang out with God. I mean, how much better could you have it? And then all of a sudden, there's Adam and Eve tempted by the devil. Now, just pause for a moment. There they have it perfect. They're in the presence of God, and along comes the devil and gets them to eat of the fruit. I'd look at Adam and go like, "Bro, what's going on? What are you thinking?" But for just a moment, we need to recognize that even though they had it so wonderfully, they still had the same need to eat and to sleep and to drink. Anytime there's a void within us, say hunger or thirst, anytime there's that void within us, we're moved to action. But as St. John tells us in his first letter, there are three things in the human being that were not put there by God: concupiscence of the flesh, concupiscence of the eyes, and pride of life. Very fancy words that St. John Paul II used in the theology of the body. But to suffice it to say, think about it. When we desire things with our eyes or desire things in our flesh, these are things that are within us, and these are basically symbols, if you will, for us today to reflect on. Things like thirst. When you're thirsty, you go get a drink of water. That satisfies your thirst. But now if we move it into the spiritual realm, well, what's going to be a little different? Well, in the spiritual realm, there was a void created in all of us by God. And that was a void for love. We need another to satisfy ourselves. The part of the Genesis reading that was left out is when God looks at Adam and he sees him there by himself and he goes, "Hold on, there's something wrong here. It's not good that the man is alone, that he doesn't have another like himself." There was a void within Adam that Adam knew. He loved God and he had the perfect love of God, but God also realized he needed another. And so he gives him Eve. It's a really beautiful thing when you pause and meditate on it for a little while. We have this thing within us, this thirst within us for love, this desire within us for love. And God fills it perfectly. God was able to fill it perfectly for Adam, and yet still Adam recognized that something was missing. He needed something else. Now, when we talk about, say, like physical thirst or physical hunger, well, we know now in our fallen nature that we can fill it the right way or the wrong way. So when you're like really hungry and it's time to eat some vegetables, maybe some potatoes or some meat, or, have a nice meal and sit down and enjoy your meal, or chocolate cake. We can abuse it if we want, and we can do what we want because we do have that freedom. But when we satiate our hunger with food that's not good for us, did you ever see the documentary Supersize Me? If you haven't seen it, go ahead. It's very telling. A guy ate McDonald's for 30 days and put on a whole ton of weight. Because it's not the right kind of food. It will get rid of the hunger, but it will also damage our bodies. Well, it's the same thing for our spirit, too. We desire God. We desire to be with God. As St. Augustine famously said, my heart is restless until it rests with God, until it's fulfilled by God. And so we're like Jesus in the desert. The difference is Jesus was out in the desert. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, I have a little trouble with one day. I don't know about you, but 40 days and 40 nights he was out there. And he had no food, and he really had nothing much to drink. And yet there he was at the end of the 40 days. If you think it's impossible to fast for 40 days, fascinating thing I saw this week, Kevin James, the actor, who's now become a very, very active Catholic, was on the Joe Rogan podcast and admitted that he fasted for 41 days for his daughter. His daughter was very ill, and he said, I'm going to offer this for my daughter. And he made it 41 days with just some water, and to which he put like some electrolytes and a few other things. 41 days. He said he lost 60 pounds, that wasn't his motivation. It is possible that we can offer ourselves for another. And that's the purpose of the desire that God put within us, is to offer it appropriately for the other. So look at Jesus. What's the very first thing the devil tries when he's hungry? He says, well, let me get you to misuse your power by turning these stones into bread, because you're hungry. It worked on Adam and Eve. They looked at the fruit and they're like, wow, that looks really tasty. Oh. And what does Jesus do? He said, no. I'm immersed in God. I'm immersed in my Father. I have the love that sustains me. I don't need you, and I don't need to abuse this power. I'm perfectly content with being hungry. It's far more important to me to have the love of God than to be hungry. And so what does he do? He's satiated by God. His desire for food was filled by God. How many of us can say that that's true for each and every one of us? See, that's the struggle, because temptations come, and sometimes we look at something that looks really good, and we really want it, but if we take it, it won't be good for us, and it'll damage the relationship. See, Adam and Eve had it perfect. Everything was harmonized. Everything was beautiful. They were in unity with God. They were in unity with one another. They were naked without shame. They didn't have any of that until the sin came. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, it's up to you and to me this Lent to be walking that journey of thirst. Yeah, we can be physically thirsty, but that's not the thirst we're talking about. We're thirsting for God. We're thirsting for love. And we're going to talk more next week about how prayer as thirst. This week, it's just the dynamics of thirst. If you're following in the book with Father Langford, which there are still some copies available if you haven't, this week there's 6 days in the week. And each day, Monday through Saturday, there's a little meditation that we're going to do, reading along about these dynamics of thirst. And he points out that, well, part of the dynamics of thirst is that when we fill it the wrong way, let's call it sin. Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned. What is our Lenten journey about, other than looking deep within ourselves and recognizing, I've filled my thirst for God. I filled that love that God wants to offer me with something else, with something false, something fake. I filled my love for my spouse with something else. And what does that do? It creates sin, creates rupture, creates more division. Our striving together as brothers and sisters, our striving together to go out into the desert for the 40 days is going to mean that by the end of those 40 days, we might be a little hungry, we might be a little thirsty, but at the end of those 40 days, if we filled ourselves with God, with the love of God, with Jesus Christ, with prayer, and with the Blessed Mother, and all the other things that Father Langford's going to talk about, we're going to be very different at the end of those 40 days. Like the guy that did the supersize me, when he overate too much McDonald's, if we overindulge on God, we're not going to be unhealthy at the end of the 40 days. We're going to be stronger than we've ever been, spiritually, and especially when it comes to the thing we call love. True love of the other, true concern about the other, true desire for God and for another. And so allow your love to be satiated by God first and foremost, and then once you've received from God, then you can bring it to others. And so during this Lenten season, let's spend some time reflecting on these 2 words, I thirst, but take it far beyond physical thirst and take a look at it the way Mother Teresa did, St. Mother Teresa. Take a look at it as that spiritual reality that we are thirsting for God. We are desiring God, and God desires us. And the only way it can be satisfied is when we completely give ourselves to Him and we receive Him completely in turn. God bless you.